Late afternoon sunlight stretched across the historic brick buildings of Baltimore's Harbor Point, painting long golden shadows over the sidewalks as Sergeant Alicia stepped out of Riverside Community Center with a warm smile. The youth outreach event had lasted longer than scheduled, but she never minded. Spending an extra hour answering children's questions about police work always felt more important than paperwork waiting back at the station. One little boy had proudly told her he wanted to become a police officer because he had seen her helping people instead of simply arresting them. Those words stayed with her as she adjusted the body camera clip neatly to her navy blue uniform. "Stay safe, Sergeant Brooks," one of the teachers called. Alicia turned and waved. "You too. Tell those kids I'm expecting all of them to wear their bike helmets." The group laughed before disappearing back inside. She checked her watch. There was still enough time to make it back before the evening briefing. Dispatch had been unusually quiet all afternoon, giving her a rare opportunity to enjoy the peaceful walk through one of the older parts of the city. Baltimore had changed a great deal over the years. Some neighborhoods were thriving, while others were still fighting their way back from decades of hardship. Alicia believed every community deserved officers who showed us respect before demanding it. Many people saw only the badge on her chest. Few noticed the discipline behind her calm posture. Even fewer knew that years before joining the police department, she had served as a United States Marine. The Corps had taught her that true strength wasn't measured by how quickly someone fought, but by how patiently they avoided unnecessary conflict. It had also taught her something she carried into every shift. Fear grows when good people stop standing where they're needed most. As she reached the corner of Mercer Street, another patrol officer slowed beside her cruiser. "You want a ride back?" he asked through the open window. Alicia smiled appreciatively. "I've got it. Appreciate the offer. You sure Industrial District's pretty quiet this time of day?" "Quiet isn't always a bad thing." He nodded before driving away. Alicia continued on foot, choosing the familiar shortcut through Mercer Alley. She had walked that route dozens of times during the past 3 years. It saved nearly 10 minutes and usually offered nothing more exciting than delivery trucks and warehouse workers finishing their shifts. The entrance to the alley narrowed between two aging brick buildings. Rusted fire escapes zigzagged overhead, while faded graffiti covered sections of the walls. Rain from the previous evening still lingered in shallow puddles that reflected the orange glow of the lowering sun. Halfway inside, the atmosphere changed. The city noise behind her seemed to fade. No passing traffic, no distant conversations, only silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that made experienced officers pay attention. Alicia instinctively slowed her pace. Without turning her head, she scanned every reflective surface nearby. The puddles, dusty warehouse windows, and the chrome bumper of an old delivery truck parked near the far end of the alley. Something felt wrong. Her marine instincts had never relied on luck. They relied on observation. Then she heard it. The low rumble of motorcycle engines. One engine, then another, then several more. The sound echoed between the brick walls, until it seemed to come from every direction. At the far end of the alley, 6 motorcycles rolled slowly into view before stopping side by side, their headlights cutting through the growing shadows. Chrome gleamed beneath layers of dust, while heavy engines idled. With an intimidating growl, one by one, large men climbed off the bikes. Leather vests, heavy boots, tattooed arms, confident smiles. Others stepped out from behind dumpsters and loading docks, quietly sealing off the path behind her. Alicia counted them without moving her eyes. 13579, no sudden movements. No racing heartbeat, just steady breathing and careful observation. The largest man among them walked forward with slow, deliberate confidence, towering well over 6 feet. His weathered leather vest stretched across broad shoulders covered in faded military-style tattoos. A grey beard framed a grin that carried more arrogance than humor. He stopped only a few feet away and looked Alicia up and down before chuckling. "Well, looks like somebody wandered into the wrong alley." The other bikers laughed, spreading out into a loose circle around her. Marcus Kane took another step closer, tilting his head with a mocking smile. "Come here, sweetheart." Marcus Kane's grin widened as the laughter echoed through the alley. The sound bounced off the old brick walls, turning the narrow passage into what felt like a stage where his gang believed they controlled every outcome. He folded his tattooed arms across his chest, and looked Alicia up and down as though she were nothing more than another frightened officer who had wandered into territory she didn't understand. "A Marine," he said with a mocking chuckle. "That's a good one." The men surrounding him burst into laughter. One biker slapped another on the shoulder. "Did you hear that she thinks she's going to scare us?" Marcus slowly stepped closer, until barely a foot separated them. His confidence came from years of intimidating people who were too afraid to stand their ground. Most victims lowered their eyes. Most apologized. Most begged for a chance to leave. Sergeant Alicia Brooks did none of those things. She stood with quiet confidence, her shoulders relaxed and her breathing steady. Her expression never changed. Marcus noticed it. "So that's your game?" he asked. "You stay quiet and hope we lose interest," Alicia answered calmly. "My job is protecting people, not arguing with them." The response only entertained the gang. A biker with a shaved head circled behind her. Without warning, he grabbed both of her wrists, pinning her arms behind her back. Another reached toward her shoulder. With a violent jerk, he ripped the police radio from her uniform. Plastic snapped, the radio crashed against the wet pavement before skidding through a puddle. Sparks flashed briefly as dirty water seeped inside the damaged device. "There goes your backup," another biker laughed. Marcus looked down at the broken radio before meeting Alicia's eyes again. Now nobody's coming. The gang closed their circle another step. 9 men, 1 officer. To anyone watching from a distance, the outcome looked obvious. Marcus reached out and gently lifted Alicia's chin with one finger, smiling as though he enjoyed humiliating people more than hurting them. "You know what your problem is, sweetheart?" he asked quietly. "You still think that badge gives you power?" Alicia looked directly into his eyes. "The badge doesn't give me power," she replied. "It gives me responsibility." For a brief moment, Marcus's smile faded. Not because of fear, because he couldn't understand why she wasn't afraid. Most people trembled by now, most pleaded. She simply stood there. Behind her uniform, hidden beneath the small black housing of her body camera, a tiny emergency indicator blinked once. Almost impossible to notice earlier. While adjusting her equipment outside the community center, Alicia had quietly enabled the department's emergency evidence protocol. The system continuously stored encrypted audio whenever officers believed a confrontation might escalate. Every voice, every threat, every insult, every laugh, every second was now being preserved. The gang remained completely unaware. Marcus spread his arms toward his men. "Look at her, still acting tough. You'd think someone forgot to tell her whose streets these are." One biker kicked the broken radio farther across the alley. Another leaned against the wall with a smirk. "You think the department's going to come rescue you?" Marcus answered before Alicia could speak. "No, they know better." The men laughed again. Alicia remained silent. She wasn't ignoring them. She was studying them, the scar running across one man's left eyebrow, the fresh grease stains on another's gloves, the heavy ring on Marcus's right hand, the narrow spacing between each attacker. Every observation mattered. Marine instructors had repeated the lesson thousands of times. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Panic made mistakes. Discipline created options. Marcus mistook her calmness for surrender. He leaned closer until only inches separated them. "Come on," he whispered. "Say something. You've got 9 men around you, no radio." "Tow partner, no way out." Alicia finally answered. "You've made one mistake." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "And what's that? You assumed you knew who you were threatening." Several bikers exchanged amused glances. Marcus laughed louder than before. "I know exactly who you are. You're a cop standing alone." "No," Alicia replied quietly. "I'm someone who learned a long time. Ergo, that courage isn't about having the advantage. It's about standing your ground when the advantage belongs to someone else." For the first time, a few of the bikers stopped smiling. There was something different about her. She wasn't pretending to be brave. She wasn't trying to impress anyone. She genuinely believed every word she had spoken. Marcus noticed the shift in his men's expressions and quickly reclaimed. His face hardened. "I've heard enough." He pointed toward the largest biker standing beside him. "Teach her what happens when people disrespect the Iron Vultures." The towering man rolled his shoulders and stepped forward, cracking his knuckles with a grin that suggested he expected the encounter to be over in seconds. The rest of the gang backed away just enough to give him room. convinced they were about to witness another helpless victim, broken by intimidation, completely unaware that every lesson Alicia had learned through years of service, sacrifice, and relentless Marine training had prepared her for moments exactly like this. The towering biker stepped forward with the confidence of a man who had never been challenged. He cracked his knuckles and smiled as though the outcome had already been decided. Around him, the rest of the gang spread into a loose circle, eager to watch another display of intimidation. Marcus Kane folded his arms and nodded once, certain that fear would finally appear on Sergeant Alicia Brooks's face. It never did. Alicia remained calm, her breathing steady, her eyes focused. Every lesson from her years in the Marine Corps echoed in her mind. She had learned that the strongest weapon was not anger or strength, it was discipline. She didn't see 9 enemies. She saw 9 decisions, 9 movements, and 9 opportunities. The first biker lunged toward her, throwing a heavy punch meant to overwhelm her with brute force. Alicia shifted one step to the side. The punch missed completely, using his own momentum. Against him, she redirected his arm and sent him stumbling shoulder first into the brick wall. The impact echoed through the alley. The laughter stopped. A second biker rushed forward. Convinced the first had simply been careless, Alicia pivoted smoothly, avoiding his grasp before using a controlled defensive maneuver to send him harmlessly onto the wet pavement. His leather vest slid through a puddle as surprise replaced confidence. Marcus's grin disappeared. "What are you waiting for?" he shouted. "Move." 3 more bikers charged together. Instead of meeting force with force, Alicia stayed composed. Years of professional training had taught her that unnecessary violence solved nothing. Every movement she made was measured, designed only to stop the attack and protect herself. One attacker lost his balance after overcommitting. Another collided with his own partner. The third froze, suddenly realizing they had underestimated the woman standing before them. The alley grew quiet except for the rumble of motorcycles. Still idling nearby, Marcus stared at Alicia in disbelief. "Who are you?" he demanded. She straightened the torn shoulder of her police uniform and looked directly at him. "My name is Sergeant Alicia Brooks." She paused. "And before I ever wore this badge, I proudly served this country as a United States Marine." Those words landed harder than any punch for the first time. Marcus saw not someone he could intimidate, but a woman whose courage had been built through years of sacrifice, discipline, and service. In the distance, the sound of sirens filled the air. Blue and red emergency lights reflected across the warehouse windows as several patrol units entered. The industrial district officers quickly secured the area while ordering everyone to step back. Marcus looked around. The confidence that had filled the alley only moments earlier was gone. His gang no longer looked fearless. They looked uncertain as officers moved in. Investigators began documenting the scene. Alicia calmly explained what had happened and pointed out the damaged police radio, the body camera recording, and the witnesses who had gathered after hearing the commotion. Professionalism, not revenge, guided every decision she made. One young officer quietly approached her. "Sergeant," he said, "how did you stay so calm?" Alicia smiled. "Because courage isn't about proving you're stronger than someone else. It's about choosing to protect people, even when standing your ground is difficult." The young officer nodded, carrying those words with him. Over the following weeks, the investigation led to multiple arrests connected to organized criminal activity in the area. Residents, who had once been too afraid to speak, began sharing information. Inspired by the example of one officer who refused to let fear decide her actions, the neighborhood slowly started believing that trust between law enforcement and the community could be rebuilt. One act of courage at a time. As the sun set over Baltimore, Alicia walked past the same community center, where children were laughing outside after an evening sports program. Seeing them safe reminded her why she had chosen a life of service. Real strength was never about winning fights. It was about protecting hope, earning trust, and showing the next generation that integrity is stronger than intimidation. If this story inspired you, I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts. What part of Alicia's courage stood out to you the most? Share your answer in the comments below, and tell me which state or country you're watching from. It's always amazing to see this community come together from around the world. If you'd like the next story to feature a black woman detective, a K-9 officer, an FBI agent, or another ex-Marine facing an impossible challenge, let me know in the comments. Your ideas help shape Future stories and your support means more than you know. Until next time, remember, courage begins with one person choosing to do what's right, even when it's the hardest choice.